The Wednesday week is sponsored by the Riverside Cafe, the perfect place for a pre-match pint.
There's a chance here, a great save from McClare. Might come a terrific goal by Sheridan.
Brentman against Jones. Get in.
You could have two goalkeepers in there, they would have trouble saving.
Hello and welcome to the Wednesday week, the Sheffield Wednesday podcast. There's tons of the bloody things now. I suppose we're going to have to change that. We'll start saying now then, welcome to the original Sheffield Wednesday podcast. We'll go with that. I'm James. I'm, your host, anchor, as Lord Hillsborough prefers to say, mother for this week's podcast. And with me, she's back after a week on the sidelines, Miss Victoria Wood.
Hello, my dear. I like to call you mother.
I don't know how I feel about mother. So Sam Hutchinson was missing last week because he had diarrhea. Similar story for you, or?
That's kind of just our cover story, to be honest. We didn't want anyone to know about our trip to Dubai. But yeah, obviously diarrhea, Dubai, same thing. Yeah. So yeah, we're both home. You know, we're happy. We've had a nice break. It's just good to be back.
And we have a special guest joining us tonight. This is very special because joining us from, across the pond, a colonial cousin, if you will, from the awesome new Owls Americast. You may know him as the Ohio Owl, but let's just call him Evan. It's evening here. Was it like afternoon over there?
Yeah, so it's 4:22 exactly p.m. here. So we're 5 hours behind at the moment. I think we have some daylight savings time coming up that puts us 4 hours behind, and then it switches back quickly. So 4:22.
You've got actual sunshine right now.
Yeah, we do. A beautiful day here in Ohio.
We've got just darkness.
I've got one of those new LED street lights right outside my bedroom window, so it's kind of like sunlight. And horrific, but at least they turn it off at 7 a.m. when you're leaving for work, because that's really handy. So
all I can think of now is that episode of One Foot in the Grave where they've got the street
it was like that when they first built it. I was mad. I was so angry because it is bang outside my bedroom window. It's awful.
Now, Evan, obviously you are one of the hosts of the Owls Americast, and we'll talk a bit more about that later on. We'll get to know you a little bit as well for anyone that hasn't heard it yet and maybe hasn't kind of come across you yet. But first of all, let's talk some football, and let's talk about the Derby game last Saturday. Now, first up, there were a few changes for this game. Anyone surprised by any of the selections for this one?
Not particularly. I think it was pretty... to be honest, I was so disconnected before the match. I had it on my phone on the Sky Sports pop-up thing, and I think I read it and went, meh. I couldn't have told you if it was the same team or not, to be honest. I was that miserable. I don't know. Plus, it was raining. I didn't have an umbrella. It was just a bad day all around, really.
Well, I mean, woe is Vic. Woe is Vic.
I know, well...
Glenn Louven's coming back into the team. It was something that I think had been at the back of all our minds for a little while. We talked about missing that leadership, that solidity at the back, which has been like our thing, hasn't it? For probably the last 3 seasons, it's been our thing. Wasn't
it great to have him back? That solidity we've been missing. Woohoo!
I was so excited before the game because it gave an opportunity for all manner of Glenn Louven's is not dead puns. Your tweets were brilliant. I think were they literally 3 minutes apart, weren't they? Oh my God, Glenn Louven's isn't dead. Oh well, great.
Well, it's interesting from an American standpoint because I wake up at 9:45 a.m. and the match starts at 10 o'clock. And so I don't have a chance throughout the day to see who's going to be in the club. I don't see the lineup reports or anything of the sort. So, it gets to 10 o'clock and I turn it on and there's no commentary. So I have to look closely at the screen to see who's playing where. And I saw Louven's. It was probably the 3rd minute when I realized that he was on the field, and I said to myself, "Oh, this is great, this is awesome." And then obviously he trips a guy from behind, and right at that moment, I mean, it was they were 30 seconds apart from when I realized he was on the pitch to when I realized he was not. So it was pretty disappointing.
And what was your take on it? I know you guys have already talked about it in your podcast this week. Penalty or not penalty? Red card, not red card?
I think penalty was fair. I think that I think it was close enough to the box. I know it has to be in the box. I think it was. But again, we talked about the double jeopardy rule a little bit, and it's one that I don't quite understand. And I think I don't understand it because it wasn't necessarily applied to the match. You know, he brought a guy down, he got the card, but then they got the penalty as well. So pretty confusing situation.
I think it has to
That's
be,
why we're lucky to have James here, because he's the
considered
the oracle.
A genuine attempt to play the ball for that rule to apply. I mean, it's a grey area. It's a relatively new thing. It did come in last season, didn't it? Although it's something that we don't see applied that much. So
well, you seem to know most of the ins and outs of it, James. To be fair, you're the person that I text as soon as anything like that happens, because you know.
Yeah, but I just make it up. I mean, I just pretend that I know what I'm talking about. So my understanding of it, to summarise it, is if it's a genuine attempt to play the ball, then the punishment is the penalty. It should then be a yellow card. So the referee's got to interpret it that he either thinks, first of all, he thinks he's not going for the ball, he's just going for the man, he's trying to take him down. Or actually, if it's just a mistimed chat, if it's clumsy, if he's kind of like, bumped into him, then unfortunately it's not classed as an attempt to play the ball. And even though it's actually just, it's just a bit clumsy. And I think in this situation, that's probably the most likely case, that the referees just thought, well, he just got a little bit too close to him. It was a silly challenge, therefore he's got to go. I mean, it seemed a bit harsh at the time. We were at the opposite end of the ground. I'd had a few beers, and no surprise that my view of it was a little hazy, a little blurry. But the consensus in the end was that we thought it was a little bit harsh. I think another kind of summarise this. Another referee might well have interpreted that differently. It wasn't a clear-cut red card, but you know what? He got the red card, and then we saw. I mean, obviously they scored the penalty. We saw something a bit strange happen after that, because we saw kind of Sheffield Wednesday galvanise. For the first time in a few games, we really saw that team kind of roll their sleeves up and say, you know what, we can still get something out of this.
Yeah, I thought the focus of the match definitely shifted, and maybe even hopefully moving forward the focus of the season, because it definitely seemed like we were sharper on our passes. We worked a little harder through the midfield and generated quite a few scoring chances with a man down. So I'm definitely hoping that moving forward, that's something we see more of. These guys understanding that if they just focus a little more, they can generate more and come out on top.
I mean, James, in fairness, you had nothing negative really to say, did you? No, I mean, we were all just listening or seeing the scores and going, "Oh, bloody hell, bloody rubbish!" But actually, you were quite positive about this, which is so unlike you, James, to have your rose-tinted spectacles on. But yet again, you did, my child.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a lot to be positive about. I think, you often see, it's not unusual to see when a team goes down to 10 men, they actually really start playing, because I think, for a lot of teams, when they're the underdog, it's when you see that sort of dogged determination to say, you know what, we're going to fight this, and maybe if it's a slightly controversial sending off, and it becomes, for those 10 men that are left, it becomes a bit of a us against the world situation, and they're going to really fight for their lives. And in actual fact, maybe we'd have played great with Glenn Leuven still on the pitch, I don't know, but maybe in the long run that could be a real positive for us, because it showed us a side to Wednesday that has been sadly lacking for a little while now, and we haven't really seen. And it was the Wednesday that a lot of fans have been crying out for. It was that 100% commitment, 100% effort, really kind of giving everything and really kind of working hard to turn games around, which the accusation from a lot of fans has been that hasn't been there. That energy, that effort, that work rate, that kind of fighting and really playing for the badge, playing with the heart. That's what some fans I think has been missing.
Well, those situations, like you said, they can go really 50-50, can't they? They can either, heads drop and you give up. I think, like you said, obviously we didn't, and we tried. And I think probably the fact that it was so early on in the game maybe helped that as well. They'd not actually got into sort of a flow, if you like. They'd not cohesed by that point. So a few minutes in, it does give you the chance to come back and to give it all. But it always seems to go 50-50. It's either going to be the best thing that's happened to a team, or it can all just go to pot and it can be a cricket score. We were kind of in the middle. I think in a way it's a shame that happened away from home, because I think a lot of people like myself, like Lord Hillsborough, like a few others listening, were just looking at the score and actually didn't see the end product as such. We didn't see what was actually happening on the pitch. Whereas I think at a home game, there might not have been as many negative outcome. Well, there'd still been a lot. Let's be honest, you could have won 8-0 and there'd still be a lot of negative outcomes. But there wouldn't have been as many people moaning because they would have seen that commitment. Whereas in an away game, there's only going to be 2,000 to 3,000 people that see that.
It's interesting because this highlights a slightly odd situation that we have just between the three of us tonight. I mean, obviously I was at the game and I saw it all in front of me. Vic, obviously you are, what is Derby, 40 miles, 50 miles up the road from the ground, listening to it in Sheffield. Evan, you're like 4,000 miles away? I'm kind of guessing there, something like that. And you obviously you actually get to see the game over there, which is kind of more than what Wednesday fans back home listening to it on the radio get to see.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I think I've watched the number of matches I've watched this year almost equals the total I've watched since 2012 up until this season. So we've been very fortunate. Now people moan about the iFollow quality. It's one camera. There's no audio commentary unless you do some maneuvering, and so people complain. But I feel like we're very fortunate to be able to watch. I'm delighted that we can. It's almost like watching from the roof of Hillsborough, though. It's pretty far away, the camera, and it's really sometimes hard
it's set up in my attic, Evan. That's why.
yeah, it's hard to tell what's going on sometimes, but at the end of the day, we're watching the club we love here in America, and it's very exciting.
Okay, it was a game with plenty of incident, and there are a ton of things that we could talk about. I'll whiz through a few things then. Obviously, we had a few penalty shouts of our own. One particularly, the Stephen Fletcher one, that kind of stands out as being not dissimilar to what happened at the other end of the pitch, which was obviously given as a penalty and a red card. Where do you stand on it? Do you think it was a penalty?
I think maybe it was a penalty, but I think at the same time he's going down a little bit too easy in that situation. And perhaps if he would have tried to strengthen his way to the goal and put a shot on the goal, we were more likely to score that way. It was very disappointing that it wasn't a penalty. Obviously, we're trying to tie the match and get a goal back, but I'm okay with the referee's decision, only because it seemed like he went down far too easily.
Is there a kind of a... This is a much bigger issue to kind of get into, but when I hear people talk, and particularly kind of analysers on TV will kind of say, oh, maybe he's gone down a little bit too easily there. It kind of like, football is football. A foul is a foul, whether the man goes down. And I kind of feel a bit for footballers when... I don't do a lot of running in my everyday life, but when I've played football, whatever, the last time I played five-a-side in 1980 something, when you're running with a football or you're running after a football, the slightest bit of contact with you go absolutely flying. And professional footballers they're a bit bulkier, they're a little bit more used to it, but sometimes it can be really hard to stop yourself going flying when someone even kind of just brushes past you. Is it fair of referees to kind of decide they're not going to give something because they think the man's gone down too easily? Because I think that's really harsh.
Well, I think that it's tough for referees. I think in their situation, they want to make sure that they get everything completely right, and a lot of times they're not correct, especially if you follow us on Twitter. But it's difficult from their standpoint. If you see a guy go down very easily, sometimes I think you're skeptical. And when you're supposed to make a call on the spot, a lot of times those can be missed just because. And I'm no referee. I don't want to act like a referee expert, but I would just imagine that you're trying to make the call in real time, and when something like that happens, it can kind of throw you off.
I think we all secretly think that we could be a referee. I don't know if either of you saw this. There was a thing doing the rounds on Twitter. It was probably a couple of weeks ago, where you could have a go at being a linesman. So the camera was kind of at the side of the pitch, and you'd see the players running about. And when the ball's played, you've got to decide whether it's onside or offside. Now, we all reckon that we could be a linesman. I think I got every single one of them wrong.
I need to see this. You need to tweet it, James.
Honestly, it's worth having a go at, because you kind of think, oh, that's dead easy. But you're watching the man, and the next thing you're like, oh, he's kicked the ball. Oh, well, I wasn't paying any attention. Oh, heck. So you just guess. And I got a couple of
heck.
It was yeah. You just hear. I'd love to hear a linesman at Hillsborough just kind of go, oh, heck, I didn't see it. No, play on. All right, next thing I've got written down, and Vic, I know this is something that you were talking a bit about on social media and really trying to find out a bit more information about, and this is, I've called it Reachgate, which is probably overstating what it actually was. Now, it happened not far from where I was, and I can kind of tell you the story exactly as it happened, really.
Somebody tweeted saying you'd seen it like 100% and you were the witness, but then you just didn't reply to my text, so I didn't know what happened.
Sorry, I was at Gatecrasher. I was,
Yeah, I know.
All right, so Adam Reach has the ball, kind of runs forward a little bit, and then does the kind of the thing that frustrates many Wednesday fans, where he stops, checks back, and plays the easy ball back towards, I can't remember who it was, might have been Bannon, might have been Kieran Lee, towards a midfield player. So playing it more kind of backwards across the pitch rather than running and taking on his man. Now, this happens just at the edge of where the Wednesday kind of away end section begins. Clearly, some fans kind of shout, "What are you doing? Run it, your man!" Words to that effect. I'm sure they were a little bit more colourful than that. And all that happens at this point is Adam Reach just turns to the fans and kind of throws his arms in the air as if to say, "What do you expect me to do?" It wasn't a rude gesture. It wasn't particularly out of order. It was a rare thing. You don't often see players doing it, maybe at all at football, but certainly not while the ball's live. I mean, he's only just played the ball, and the first thing he does is kind of turn around and gesture towards the fans. I believe he's kind of via his dad on Twitter that we know that he said that he kind of regrets it and it was a daft thing to do. I kind of think it was something and nothing, even though it was quite rare. What do you reckon, Vic? Because you were quite interested in it. Is there anything in this? Is it just?
Yeah, I mean, I'd read that he turned around, stuck up, like flipped the bird at everybody and told them to F off. Which apparently you, James, were a key witness to. The person who said that said, "Well, ask James Marriott. They saw it as well." But if everything's going to shit at your work, right, and you desperately I work in. If there's a massive crisis, sort of like when I was in PR, if something's going to absolute just to shambles, and you're doing your best to work it out, and you've got 20 people behind you all the time going, "What are you doing?" At some point you go to around and go, "Fuck off. I'm trying to do my job. You're not doing it. This is my job." And actually, Monday to Friday, with the possibility of Tuesday or Wednesday off, he trains for his job, right? That is the majority of his job is spent Monday to Friday, a few hours on a pitch at Middlewood Road. The other bit, the key part of his job, every single weekend and the odd Tuesday night, is to play football. And if you're constantly getting berated for something that, let's be honest, is tactical, that's what he's been told to do, I'd imagine. I can't imagine they just do their own thing when they go out there. I think Carlos has a job for a reason. Well, that's debatable. But Carlos's role is to give them tactics. So he's following exactly what he's been told to do, presumably, and he's getting berated by people that are actually paying to be there. You've paid, if you're an away fan, you've paid for your train ticket or your petrol, you pay for your ticket, you pay for your programme, your pie, your beer. Why would you stand there and just berate somebody? So I think actually the nice thing about it is that it's quite a human reaction. Most people, if you think about your normal working life, or even as a parent or whatever, if you constantly had 20 people behind you saying no matter what you did, it was the wrong option. Because let's be honest, if he'd have run at his man and got tackled or lost the ball or whatever, he'd have got just as much stick. So it's kind of 50-50, but he did something that most human beings would do. And I think in a way that's, for this £5 million golden boy that we constantly hear about, you know, it shows that he's a human being as well. And he's just as frustrated as the fans. He's trying to do what he can do. And, you know, I'm glad that he didn't turn around and swear at everyone and tell them what to do. But he threw his arms up, like, big deal, Christ. It's not like he tripped your mum up. Like, he threw his arms up in the air. That's all he did.
Evan, what's the American perspective on this? Did you actually see it on the eye?
Evan, speak for all of America.
No pressure.
Right, yeah. I missed it. I didn't see him throw his hands up. But I think Victoria said it best. You know, if he goes at his man and he gets dispossessed and you know, Darby take off the other way and go put one into the back of the net when we're already down a man, then, you know, it's you know, all hell breaks loose. So, you know, he was in a tough spot there, and that's probably what prompted him to turn around. You know, he's got a job to do. He's got to play some defense, and he's got to make sure we don't concede another goal, and he gets rid of the ball, and all of a sudden people are going at him. And so I think while he should be focused on the pitch, I think that it's like Victoria said, it's a human reaction, and he was just frustrated.
We did see a bit as well of the real ugly side of football, something that no football fan wants to see. It's been quite well documented in the certainly in the press here, and certainly on social media with regards to fans fighting. Obviously, I was there. I was quite towards the front. There was one point where I became aware of a scuffle among the Wednesday fans, kind of towards the edge of the kind of the away fan section, and saw a couple of people dragged out by stewards. Certainly saw a couple of kind of punches thrown. At the time, didn't really take much notice. More bothered about what's going on the pitch. But it sounds like from kind of what's been reported in the press and from eyewitnesses that there was some other stuff going on, that maybe there was some seats ripped out and thrown, possibly even thrown at other Wednesday fans by Wednesday fans, and some exchange of flares thrown between home fans and away fans. I didn't see any of this, I've got to confess, but I don't pay a lot of attention to what's kind of going on behind me at football games. It was talked about a bit in the steering group last night, and certainly it was confirmed that Derbyshire police are going to be making some arrests as a result of what happened. But I mean, this is just something that we don't want to see, is it? I mean, we're having a difficult time as a club, certainly on the pitch. The last thing that we need is more trouble off the pitch, and fans turning on each other benefits no one.
Regardless, I think, I'm sorry, if, like you said, you've paid that money to go to the match, you know, you follow, and to get a ticket for Derby, you know, you've got to have gone to a lot of away games, you've got to have built up your points and whatever else. But I'm sorry, if you get caught doing that, I don't want you in the ground when I'm there. I don't like, and if I had children that I was taking to that match, I wouldn't want you there. I think every club has this like horrible, like venomous part to it that just, you know, if they get caught, ban them. That's, at the end of the day, they don't need it there. You know, nobody wants trouble inside the ground. I've always said, if you're a hooligan, James, and you want to have a fight and you want to meet up with away fans after, and, you know, you're all texting, you've got those stupid coats on with little eye holes in, all that crap. If you want to do it, go and find a field. I don't care. Go and kill each other for all I care. I'm not bothered. But stay away from the football ground that I go to with my family and that people go to with their children. There's no need for it. You're there to watch a match. There's 90 minutes that you have to behave like an adult, like a human being, and not throw punches around, not rip seats up, not set off bloody flares. Are the most annoying thing. They don't look big. They look stupid. They're like a shit firework. They're like one of those bath bombs from Lush, but in the air. They're just ridiculous. And it just makes a mockery of everything that football's about. And, you know, I don't know who these people are. Like, do they really think they look like Danny Dyer, like romping about in the stand? No, he's just like a pillock. So piss off and go and watch someone else. Or better still, go and watch tennis.
Yeah, you know, I think the general perception of football fans in America is that they're these big big brawly hooligans who love to get in scraps with the opposing team's fans. But I think once our own supporters start fighting each other, then we have completely new issues to face. I think that some people just view a mid-table standing in November, or I guess we're still in October, as the end of the world. And when you start fighting amongst yourselves, there's some huge issues within the club, and I hope that gets sorted very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's quite interesting to hear a perspective on it from a different country where the culture of sport is so different. And I think that for the vast majority of football fans here, it's something that we don't want to see. As I say, it was touched on in the steering group last night. They did mention as well, and I'm going to mention this now, that certainly at home matches there is a text service if there's someone sat near you that you feel is acting inappropriately. Then there is a text number that's in the programme that you can text. And what they don't do is send stewards in to kind of go and challenge them. What they'll do is they turn the CCTV cameras. They can watch what this person's doing. It then allows them to collect some evidence. And if they're doing something that's really out of order, then not only do they go and chuck them out of the ground, but they've then got evidence to be able to ban them from future games as well. So it's worth mentioning that as something that if you've got someone near you that is playing up, then you can kind of do something about it. I guess that's kind of it in terms of Derby. The only other thing that I want to say about it, and you guys might agree with this, which is we've had this kind of for the last couple of weeks, this Carlos in or out thing going on. For anyone, whichever side of that fence that you're on, and maybe people that have been kind of teetering on that fence, not quite sure what they feel about it. This was a game that kind of was sort of irrelevant. This is not going to sway you one way or the other, is it? Because of the fact that it was kind of game over after 4 minutes, although we saw some real positive stuff after that. But this was a game that doesn't really affect either side of that argument, does it?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that when you go down to 10 men that early, the whole match changes, and you're not really expected to win. And I think, we gave up a goal later on, but I think it's tough to evaluate a match like this. And I think I didn't personally see shouts either way, Carlos in or out after the match, and I think that's probably the overall feeling of the club, of the support. Excuse me.
Good stuff. All right, we'll move on then from Derby and to a much less controversial subject for us to talk about: the new shirts, which have finally arrived. And we're a little bit late to the party in terms of talking about this, because it's nearly a week now, kind of since the announcement about the shirts coming out, and of course about the pricing of it. It's been talked about a lot. I guess I'm just going to give you guys the chance to kind of put your opinion forward. Vic, I know that you were pretty vocal on Friday about it. Where do you stand about it now? What do you think about the pricing structure? Are you buying a shirt?
I'm bloody not, no. Bloody expensive. Plus, looking at the sizing, Jesus Christ, I don't think I've got enough X's to fit in a shirt. It's like, have you seen the sizing on them? People who last year bought an XL, this year are in a 4XL shirt. Like that for a start is just a joke.
This was addressed at the steering group last night. Joe Palmer said they are standard UK sizes.
Nah, bollocks to you. Go and do some Tesco sizing, right, Joe? Right, listen to me. I am more likely to buy a pair of jeans from Tesco because I guarantee I'll be a size smaller than I will be in a pair of jeans from Topshop, for example. So pay attention, Joe. More people like to think that they're thinner than they are. So put them out big sizes. Make an XL the size of a tent. I'll buy an extra small. I'll be happy. Like, I'll buy 10 if I can get an extra small. And I'll do that thing where I leave the label stuck out the back so people can go, oh, your label's showing. I'll be like, I know. Yeah. Extra small, size 8. But regardless, right, it's a bloody expensive kit, isn't it? I think with it, the most expensive kit in the UK is Manchester City, I believe, which is £60. So we're £1 cheaper. Come on, like, it's a joke. And when you work out like the sort of the payroll in Shield as well, I know a lot of people, you could argue, have been able to save for an extra 3 months or whatever. But payroll in Sheffield, the majority of people, when you look at it, get paid either middle or end of the month. And if they've already spent up for this month, that screwed them over for buying it at the end of October. So therefore, they're going to miss the deadline and have to pay a tenner more just by the fact that they haven't got paid in time. And, I think that things like that are so far out of Mr. Chancery's sort of mind. He doesn't consider that, a normal Sheffield person might only have 40 quid to last them the end of the month till payday, might have to eat jacket potatoes for the next 3 days until payday. It just doesn't seem to cross people's minds. And sadly, that's the fact of life. And we're in a working class city that people live not hand to mouth, but, it gets to the end of the month and things are tight. So for me personally, October the 31st, I get paid, and then I don't get paid again until the end of November, by which point is the last day to go and get a shirt. I work 9 to 5, so the club shop helpfully closes at 5 o'clock, opens at 9. Brilliant. I've got no chance of getting there on that payday. So I'm not paying extra tenner. I'm not being punished for the fact that I work full time and I can't get there. It's just no. But on the plus side, I know a lot of people have complained about stripes, lack of stripes and whatever else, and then obviously the cost. If you want to head over to our own podcast shop, which is www.temil.co.uk, you can buy a beautiful striped shirt that I hand drew on Microsoft Paint that says, "My shirt costs less than yours," and it has stripes, and that's £20, and it's on organic cotton. So beat that, Joe Palmer.
There we go. Work of
How
art.
much for
Work of art.
international shipping, though?
I don't think it's that much, actually. I'm pretty sure they're based in America, so it's probably a lot cheaper for you, Evan, to be fair.
Right. Yeah, excellent.
Evan, what is what's the kind of thought on this among kind of fans that you talk to over there? Because obviously sport is a huge thing in America. What's kind of pricing like over there for buying kind of official kind of club merchandise for either MLS or for any other sport there?
Yeah, it's been extremely difficult personally for me to purchase things from the team shop because first of all the international shipping is I don't know, 25, 30 American or US dollars, which it's a little less, I think, in whatever you guys pay in. I'm sorry, I forget. What currency do you go by? Not euros.
We use good old pounds, good old sterling.
Good old pounds. Yeah, there you go. So, it's very expensive to get things from over there. And my wife and I, we usually wait and just do one purchase per year. And so, the kit delay has kind of pushed things back, and I like to buy more training top type items. I like the sweatshirts and the longer sleeve things because it gets pretty cold here during the winter. So, I think Patty, from Owls Americast, New York Owls, I think he said he paid somewhere in the 90s US dollars for his shirt to come over. It had the Sky Bet Championship patch on it as well. And he paid just under $100 to get that over here. So it's quite expensive, but at the same time, we're happy at least that the kits are released. And I think the general feeling is, we're just excited. We expect to pay a lot of money anyway. And so a lot of people over here have already ordered.
Whether you're celebrating a birthday, a wedding or anniversary, maybe you've passed your driving test, or you've landed a new job. Well, whatever your reason for a party, the Riverside Cafe is the perfect location on Catch Bar Lane overlooking Hillsborough Stadium. To inquire about hiring us for your function, call 07989 856 054 or 0114 232 6121. Okay, Evan, we'll talk Owls Americas and Owls Americast in a minute. But for anyone that didn't catch the pilot episode of your podcast, I love this. Will you tell us the story of how you came to be a Wednesdayite?
Right. Okay. So basically, when I was young, as far back as I can remember, my grandmother read me a book about owls or about an owl. I'm not quite sure. I still don't know the title of the book, and my grandmother can't remember either. And so can't tell you which book it was, but anyway, that book made me fascinated with owls. And I loved owls. Anytime I saw a stuffed owl out and about, I'd beg my mother or father to buy that for me. And I just had a collection of owls merchandise. And so it was probably in 98, 99, maybe 2000 when I was playing a FIFA, and I can't remember, it could have been 90. I want to say it was FIFA 98 is what I was playing, and I stumbled across the Owls, the Sheffield Wednesday Owls crest while I was scrolling through teams, and I thought, my gosh, I'm going to play with this one. I love owls, and just kind of grew an affinity for Sheffield Wednesday way back then. And then as I got older, I think I stopped playing FIFA for a while, and I had never really followed the actual club, and I kind of fell out of any sort of fandom. And then once I got into high school, I started catching some scores, but by that time they were down, I think, in League One by the time I jumped back into things, and it was a struggling club, but I just caught some scores here and there. And then I was on a trip to Iceland, 2012. I think it was May 2012 or earlier 2012, and I was sat in a pub in Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland, and started chatting with this guy next to me, and he was actually from Sheffield. He was a pharmaceutical representative of some sort, and I was just chatting with him about football in general, and he told me he was from Sheffield, and I recalled, being a Wednesday fan, and I asked him if he was, or excuse me, he said he was, and he introduced me to iFollow, and that was the year that Wednesday were promoted from League One to the championship. So it was either 11 or 12. One of you, I'm sure, remember a little bit better than I do. But yeah. So
I think it was 12. Although I'm kind of struggling to remember myself now.
Yeah. Either way, once I was introduced to iFollow, I just dove straight into it, listened to every match I could, which was most matches. And the beginning, so I caught the tail end of 2012, which is where we were promoted, of course, and then the beginning of 2012-2013 season in the championship was actually extremely exciting for a new fan, because we scored, I think, the first 3 matches, we scored the go-ahead goal, game-winning goal in the last, 5 minutes or so. And so I think Jermaine Johnson was one of them. Rita Johnson might have been one of them. And I'm struggling to remember the third, but they were really exciting matches, and I was absolutely in love and infatuated with the club, and since 2012 have been a strong supporter. I liked Sheffield Wednesday before then, but that's my story.
I think. Have
you ever been over, Evan?
Unfortunately, I haven't. Actually, the only time I've ever even been out of the country was that Iceland trip. So the closest I've been is it an intention one day? Are you planning on coming to a game, or? Yeah, 100%. I'm recently married. I've just finished my first year of marriage, and so
you make it sound like a sentence. I've just finished my first year of marriage. Survived.
But I mean, that's kind of what it is. My wife and I were still trying to get on our feet, and we're happily married, but there's definitely some financial figuring out to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, once we get set, yeah, definitely, the first trip I want to take out of the United States is over to England, and definitely got to stop by Hillsborough.
We've talked a bit about. Sorry,
I just was going to say that I firmly believe that I will shed tears the first time I see it and walk inside. In fact, just thinking about it, I get a little worked up. So I can't wait for that trip.
It will be a special moment. It is one of those things. I think everyone's saying the first time that you kind of climb those stairs and find yourself in the ground, it is something that kind of stays with you forever.
Could you get a friend, Evan, to carry you up the stairs? Like that little boy. Was it last season or the season before? Who was about 3, and he got his first view of Hillsborough. If you could get Paddy to carry you up the stairs and then turn you around and just have this little sobbing face, that'd just be epic. You would go viral.
Patty has to start working out his legs now. But yeah, that'd be excellent.
Is that down to too much liquid cheese on your breakfast? That would be
actually had an omelet with cheese on it this morning, and I sent that picture over to Owls Talk, and haven't heard anything back yet. So who knows?
They will
what's going
be
on over there.
delighted. They will be delighted. Now we've talked a bit on the Wednesday week before about Owls Americas when that kind of became a thing during the summer. Obviously, that's kind of changed a little bit now and turned into Owls Americast. For anyone that doesn't kind of know, just give us, I guess, a fairly brief summary, really, of Owls Americas, what it's about, what it does, and what your new kind of podcast is all about.
Yeah, so we started Owls Americas this summer. I reached out to Patty, who I was very fond of for New York Owls. He's kind of been the voice of the Owls here in America for as long as I've been following. So I reached out to him and just offered my services. I own a small digital marketing company here and thought we could create a website, create something cool. And he put together a team from a couple guys from New York or New Jersey, and it just kind of took off. So the mission is forging a community inspired by Sheffield Wednesday across the American continent. And what that means for us, it's important to us to connect supporters across the Americas to create new branches and give some folks or other people or give some supporters, other people to hang out with and watch the matches. I know I watch by myself or sometimes my wife if she's awake on a Saturday morning, but I'd love for some other company, and that's kind of what our mission is here. And beyond that, though, while we're fostering the American Wednesday community, we really want to be able to build it up and extend it. So we're really hoping that I guess I'll call it the Wednesday web we've created in the Americas will serve as a warm place to welcome new fans, where they can feel like they're a part of something bigger than just simply watching by themselves. And then, we created this podcast. It was kind of an idea from the start of Owls Americas, but we brought Jeff in, and Jeff does a fantastic job. And he just produces and offered his skills up there, and it's just another way for us to connect with people here and over in England.
I've got to say, for me as a listener, and I, James Allen, who's obviously one of your regular guests on the podcast, he sent me a link to listen to the first one, and just the experience of hearing people with American accents talking about the stuff that me and Vic sit and talk about with our I probably not broad Yorkshire accents, but still there. Hearing people talk about the same stuff, hearing you guys talking about Adam Reach, Gary Hooper, all the same stuff. It's just it's such a kind of a surreal but amazing experience. And I think anyone that's listening that maybe thinks, oh well, it's kind of a podcast for Americans. It's not for me to listen to. Forget that idea. It is really worth you listening. Obviously, I've listened to episode 3 this week. I've listened to, and just tell us a bit about your guest that you had on this week, because there was an amazing story of where he lives, the time that he consumes the games, and what he does after the games, which was just brilliant.
Yeah, so Neil lives over in Southern California, and it's known amongst all Americans that San Diego, where Neil Schaefer is from, he was our guest this week. Everyone knows that San Diego has the best weather from the beginning of the year to the end, of all places in the United States. And so I say that he's very, very lucky to live in San Diego, but at the same time, San Diego's 3 hours behind our East Coast time, so he would be 8 hours behind Sheffield. Okay, so if a match starts at noon in Sheffield, then you subtract 8 hours from that, and I'm terrible at math, so it's early in the morning here. If you have a match that starts at 10 a.m. on the East Coast, that'd be, I believe, a 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. start for you. 10 a.m. here is 5 hours behind, so 5 a.m. where Neil's from. So what he said he does is he gets up and he'll watch the match, and then win or lose, he just runs over to the beach, which is really close to him, and sits in enjoyable weather and just kind of relaxes. And so he's a little less negative than most fans because he's got such a great setup out there in San Diego. So it's really good to have him on the show and hear his perspective, because all of us are out here on the east side of the United States.
It is, it really is worth listening to. It's a brilliant chat, and there's some brilliant symmetry with kind of like what the equivalent for us coming out of Hillsborough would kind of have to do to kind of recreate how kind of what he does after a game. So yeah, I'd really encourage anyone to give that a listen if you haven't done already. It really is worth giving a listen to. Anyone that hasn't listened to it yet, how do they kind of go about getting it on their iDevice or whatever it might be?
Yeah, so we're available on just about every podcast platform I know of. We're in the Google Play Store. We're on iTunes as well. You can get us on the podcast app on Apple. We also have a SoundCloud. You can go to our website, owlsamericas.com, and there's a link there's a whole page dedicated to the podcast where you can find the SoundCloud file as well. So really anywhere you find podcasts, you should be able to find us. Just search Owls Americast.
Brilliant. Now that was a nice kind of positive interlude before we reach the subject of last night's steering group. Now, anyone that doesn't know the background to this, so the steering group is a collection of kind of representatives of fan groups that comes together with the chairman, other kind of leading people from the kind of behind the scenes, the business side of the football club, get together every 2 or 3 months or so, and just kind of really chat about and the opportunity to ask questions about what's going on. You've probably already seen a lot about this doing the rounds on social media. There was a bit in the Star earlier today as well, about some of the stuff that kind of came out from that. I was there, and what I was kind of planning on doing at this point, which I think is what I did last time, is just kind of whiz through my kind of notes about the main things that came out of the meeting. So Vic, Evan, if at any point there's something that I kind of touch on that you think, oh, I want to know more about that, just give me a nudge, give me a shout at the end, and we can chat a bit more about it. But I'll whiz through the stuff that was of significance. So I think probably the biggest thing and the most important thing was the chairman, very clearly, unequivocally, I can't say that word, giving his backing to Carlos as our head coach. And his words were, I am 100% behind Carlos. And then he said, a little bit later when I came back to it, he said, I'm 200% behind Carlos, which kind of means that either, he is genuinely behind this guy, or it means he's going to sack him on Monday. That is either it's the dreaded vote of confidence, or here is a guy who, and we've seen evidence of this, genuinely believes in what Carlos is doing, and is going to back him, to the hills, really. The shirt was talked about a lot. The reasons for the delay, the lessons that were learned, the designs for next season are being finalised. That was how it was described. They said a different manufacturer will be used for next season's shirts. Joe Palmer said that the design and the quality of the shirts that they're looking at, his words were, I think it's the best shirt that the club will ever have had. They wouldn't be drawn on whether or not it'll have stripes. A few people asked. They didn't give anything away on that one. In terms of the current shirts, by the way, away kit, they have got some in stock. They're waiting on some more, because if they put them out now, they'll sell out in 10 minutes. So they're waiting on more deliveries. So the away kit is pretty close. The idea with the third kit, the kind of the special anniversary kit, which was designed by a fan, the idea is that will be out in early November, around the time that the team wear it for the first time, which is the game against Villa on the 4th of November. It's worth mentioning, by the way, Joe Palmer said that record sales of this shirt already in the opening week.
Wasn't the record sales 1,700 in a day as opposed to 1,500 though? It wasn't like, oh my God, you can't fit in the shops, there's so many people. It's like every year we have record sales of something, don't we?
But it's either record sales or it's not, isn't it? Whether or not it's 2 people more than last time or whatever. But I predicted, I said there's no way they'll get record sales for this one, and I was completely wrong.
I'm yet to see us sell something. I'm yet to see us sell something, be it a pie at halftime or a pint, or like one of those shitty key rings that does not achieve record sales. It's like it's almost become like a nothing thing now. Just stop saying it.
Yeah, but it is either a record or it's not.
Well,
But it is. I mean, that's the maths of it, isn't it? Unless unless there's someone fiddling some figures to make it look like that, it either sold more than last year or it didn't, and last year sold more than any other. So I think
it's birthday season as well, isn't it? They call it the right time.
Yeah, I suppose so. Some other quick headlines then. There was a lot of financial fair play talk, and this is really big on DC's radar at the moment. He said, his words were, not many people have signed up for Club 1867. He's looking at other ideas to kind of bring revenue into the club which counts against financial fair play. He did say stadium naming is a possibility. Joe Palmer talked about the fact the going rate for that is around about £600,000-700,000 per season. He also said there is a kind of a system in place. You can't just Mr. Chansiri could not sponsor it and charge himself £5 million a year. You're only allowed to pay what is classed as the going rate, which is, they need more than that really coming in terms of financial fair play. No surprise that, DC talks about wanting to get supporters behind the team, sticking together. He was very scathing of this minority who think that it's all right to abuse his family on social media. I mean, we don't really need to comment on that because it goes without saying that is ridiculous, and anyone that does that is an idiot. He also talked as well about condemning the players, getting on the players' back isn't helpful. He called on the supporters to kind of really get behind them. Update on the stadium situation. The capacity as it stands right now, 34,234. There is a new guy at in the SAG group apparently, and this is very promising. He seems more receptive to some of the ideas of that the club want to do. So they're looking at new segregation, and this is something we might see quite soon actually. They're looking at new segregation in the northwest corner, so like a new fence that goes up in that kind of section of seats that's never been used for many years and never will be again, which would mean that row of seats, that end block, the white seats at the end of the north stand that they're not allowed to use, they hopefully will come back into use soon. They're also looking at changes on the Kop, which will bring another 1,200 seats back into use, so hopefully that capacity as it stands will go up. Here's the thing as well, apparently we now have sign off on being allowed to have people behind the goal waving flags. So if you think about what happens when Arsenal score and the people wave the flags around, we've got the sign off to do that. I don't know if we've got the people to do it, but we've certainly got the permission to do it. They're also trying to have another go at getting permission to have, they're called walkers. This is people that kind of walk around the stand while the game is in play, selling refreshments, your chance to kind of buy a chocolate bar or whatever without
programs, £2
any of the game. Yeah, that kind of thing, but actually selling refreshments. They did do it, I think, for one game and were then told you're not allowed to do it anymore. It looks like they're going down that route again, and they're quite hopeful that they'll be able to do that again soon. I'm saying I'm going to whiz through this, and there's still loads of stuff, so this is quick fire. Transfer procedure. The coach identifies the position that he wants to strengthen. He passes that on to the chairman, who then talks to his advisors about identifying targets. It was confirmed Doyen Sports are one of his advisors, one of a few. It sounds like his son is also one of his transfer advisors, which is a little strange. They are looking at repainting the roof of the West Stand, which you'll probably know as Leppings Lane. Actually, probably still known by some people as the Presto Stand because it says it on the top of it. They are looking at painting that to get rid of it. It's going to cost a fortune. It costs about 60 grand because the amount of scaffolding that's involved in order to repaint the roof of that stand. So it's not a huge priority right now. They're looking at other options about how they could do it a bit cheaper as well. Alistair, who's the ticket office manager, he let slip that we have around 21,000 season ticket holders this season. I don't think he was supposed to do this, and the chairman didn't look very happy with him for mentioning that, but he did, so there you go. Ticket prices, they're not going to budge. If you think ticket prices are going to go down, forget it. He said that last season they did some games at a cheaper price. Attendance was the same, and Joe Palmer confirmed that they do make more money from ticket sales now to how it used to be before the ticket prices went up. So the idea of bring them down, get more people in, make more money, they kind of ruled it out. It's not going to happen. Update on catering. Sales are up this season with the new stuff that they've put in place. They've had some good feedback as well, particularly from me about Thornbridge beer. Well done, guys. I like it. They've got some new faster beer machines that are being installed in the south, which mean that they can pour a pint. I think it's something like 8 seconds faster than they currently can. It won't be happening in the north anytime soon, or in the Cop, because the fact that kiosks are so small, because their stands are quite old. We will, though, soon be getting curry available in the north stand, which is quite exciting. He explained that they're a little bit limited in terms of what they can do in the north just because of the space. You know, they haven't got room to have kind of big cooking machines and whatnot, so we're not going to be getting the same stuff that they've got in the south, but there will be some improvements to catering in the north coming soon. The Dream Scene picture, the future prints of that will have the correct ordering of the players at the bottom. The advertising boards around the ground, they were turned too bright for the last night match that we had, because the night match we had before that was still when it was quite light during the evening. They didn't turn them down, so the people that sit low down on the Cop that couldn't see what was happening at the other end of the pitch, they couldn't see the ball because of the screen brightness, that will be resolved for the Millwall match. Evan, you might be interested in this one. iFollow, they are monitoring its success. They said that there is an option for them to add extra cameras, to add replays, to add commentary, if they feel it's something that is going to be successful. So there's a bit of hope there for you guys that I know are quite reliant on that, and at the moment it is just one camera, and you don't get the commentary with it. That's something that may follow at some point. Two more quick things. They've had 400 questions that have been sent to the chairman as part of this thing that he's doing. It was pointed out that about 80% of them are actually asking the same question. He's going to be answering those in the next few days. So I think that's going on the website. I don't know if he's just going to email directly to people to answer their questions. I'm not sure, but keep an eye out for that. And finally, I wanted to mention something that we don't mention on here very much, which is the Community Foundation. This was brought up, and it was kind of like, about, it's a positive story, and we haven't had that many of them recently, because the Community Foundation are doing loads of stuff. They've got their own website now, so they can publicise what they're doing. So, check out that and have a look at what the Community Foundation are up to. They've got degree status now with Hallam University. Apparently, we're the only club in the country to have apprenticeship status. So there's lots of good news stories there. So if you need a bit of cheering up, some positive Wednesday stuff, have a look at the Community Foundation website. I need to have a bit of take a bit of a breath there, because that was a lot of stuff. Anything in there or anything else that you guys have seen about the steering group that you wanted to kind of bring up or say anything about?
Nothing really struck me as nothing blew me away with what was said, to be honest. I think the Carlos situation, with the fact that he's saying he's 100% backing him, I could have told you that he was going to say that before. It wasn't surprising. I do see it as positive. It's nice to have a chairman that believes in a manager, and I think had we have had probably one of the other chairmen in the Championship by now, Carlos probably still wouldn't be in a job, and whether that's to our detriment or not, we'll see. But I do admire his sort of commitment to that, which I didn't think we would get with Mr. Chansiri. I'm going to be honest, I didn't think he'd be that kind of guy, but he obviously is. Other than that, really nothing was too groundbreaking, was it? Apart from the fact that he held hands up and said that the shitty plaques for a year didn't work. Other than that, I'll sell Sharpies for £5 and give it money, and you can write your own name on your seat.
Fair dues.
I'll quickly comment on iFollow. I already mentioned how excited and delighted I am to be able to see matches, every match this season, and that's great for me. And I think that if increasing the quality of iFollow is going to cost the club more money, I believe it would. I just say forget it and focus on more important issues. I hope everyone can understand how lucky we are this season to be able to watch every match and just be content with what we have. And if we can continue to do that, I'm okay with keeping iFollow the same.
Absolutely. Now, due to our time difference, Evan, I know you've got to make a move pretty soon. As we always do, we've talked way more than we thought we were going to do on this. We thought we'd be done and whatever in time. So me and Vic will chat a bit about the games that are coming up, but I know you've got to get off. So just to kind of finalise, if anyone wants to find out more about, well, either you or Owls Americas or Owls Americast, just give us some contact details.
Yeah, sure thing. So for Owls Americas, just visit us on the website. It's www.owlsamericas.com. We're on Twitter as well, at Owls Americas. And then me personally, I'm on Twitter at Ohio Owl. So that's OHIOOWLS. No S. So Ohio Owl. You'll find me there. So I appreciate you guys having me on. It was a lot of fun. And I just want to mention that, the Wednesday week was the first Wednesday media that I really picked up and started listening to. So to be a guest on the show at this point is quite an honor for me. James, I know you don't like it when I get sentimental, so I'll stop there. But again, thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Thank you. You'll have that on a t-shirt soon. You do realise that, don't you?
Yeah, good stuff.
It's been a pleasure, Evan. Thank you very much. Right, Vic, it's just me and you. We've got a couple of games to talk about. That was underplaying it. I say we've got a couple of games to talk about. How important are these two games? We've got Barnsley at home. We've got Millwall at home. All due respect to Barnsley and to Millwall, but this is, 6 points or disaster, isn't it?
It's got to be, hasn't it? I'm going to be at the Barnsley game. Sadly, I'm in London for the Millwall game. So do you know where I'm staying as well? Oh, James, I'm staying on Wembley Way. So it's just going to be awful. It's going to be the first time back and whatever else. But anyway, Saturday first. What a treat to kick off early on a Saturday. I've missed that. Roll on 3 p.m. on a Saturday one day, I swear to God. It'd be so nice just to go back to normal. But yeah, it's a nice early one. It could go either way, couldn't it? I think I'm kind of a bit, I don't know. I think before the steering group and before Chansiri's comments, it kind of felt like it was make or break for Mr. Carvalhal again. But now it appears that it isn't. So it kind of feels like that's taken a bit of the pressure off in a way, and it shouldn't do. But I do think everyone's going to be up for it. I hope the crowd are just as up for it. I think Barnsley are there for the taking, but I think any of their fans will tell you that we are big time. I think they'll see this as they'll be feeling a lot more positive about it than we will, given the last few results, given the derby match that we lost. I think they'll be very, very up for it. Have they sold out? I presume they have.
No. About 1,600.
Well, it's probably like £80 a ticket, isn't it? So
yeah.
But they'll be there. Is it on Sky?
No.
No, so it's just early because of trouble, I guess. But yeah, it's mega
important, isn't it? It's a really important game because we as it stands right now, I think Barnsley are 4 points behind us in the table, and if we don't get 3 points from that game, we have to start genuinely looking over our shoulders. And I'm not saying that I can really see us being pulled into a kind of a bottom end of the table situation, but the problem is that the recovery has to start somewhere, and you'd look at it on paper and you'd say Barnsley and Millwall are the two games that it's really got to. If it doesn't start here, it's very difficult to see. After that you've got Aston Villa away. Is it going to start at Aston Villa? It becomes difficult to see at what point does this start. And what we don't want to do is pile loads of pressure on the team. I think the pressure is going to be there whatever. Now, you talked about is it make or break for Carlos, and what Chansiri said this week, said yesterday, kind of puts a bit of an end to that debate. I think that's a great thing, and I've been one of the maybe inadvertently one of the loudest shouters of kind of the it's time for a change side of this. But what we've got now is we've got a decision, we've got a call. We know now Carlos is staying as our manager, whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. He stayed. Yep. So now our job becomes, as fans, we get behind them, we get behind Carlos, we get behind the players, we go there and we support, and we do what we can to to help that team turn things around, because we are all in this together. There's no point us fighting anymore. It's not going anywhere. Certainly not in the foreseeable future. It's not going anywhere. So this is my Lord Hillsborough style impassioned plea that from me, who I've been on the TV and all over the place saying it's time for a change. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. That becomes irrelevant now. It's about us getting behind the team, and it's about us doing our little bit to get 6 points from the next, however many it is, 4 days, 5 days, whatever it works out at, because it's so important that we get that we get those points.
It is as well, and it'd be nice to get those 3 points under our belt, because I think at the moment where we are in the table, it's one of those where 3 points, we don't jump 10 places. It makes, realistically, until there's a few more come in, it doesn't move us particularly in big chunks. And I think once those few games come in and those few wins come in, and it means those 3 points could mean the difference between 7th and 4th, that's when people will start getting super, super excited about points again, and like wanting, it's at the moment there's kind of like almost like an apathy around everything, that we're kind of stuck in, it's like a bit in the mud really, and until those points start coming in, people don't really feel like there's anything to get excited for, which is kind of chicken and egg, isn't it? But I do think that once the points start building and we do start to see climbing up the table, if we do, then that surely is going to spark people even more. Because the table does make a difference to people. I know it's before Christmas.
Yeah, it does matter before Christmas. But yeah, you're right. It's right. And we need to be, not where we are now in the table. It's as simple as that. And that means winning games and getting points. So, roll on Saturday. I'm genuinely looking forward to it. I think that this could be the point that we start to turn things around. And, I just want to go and enjoy a game of football, to be honest. A couple of quick things from me then before we wrap up. We mentioned last week about I mentioned the guy from the guy called Mike, who runs a website and some social media that's kind of related to Dutch football. He was going to meet Joost van Aken. That interview is now available. You can see it on YouTube. If you want to find a link to it, go to our Twitter page at TWWcast, and we retweeted that link. It's actually a really good interview and really interesting to kind of get a bit of a feel for what kind of a guy JVA is, and to kind of you get this idea of the fact that he's a really mature, very considered guy, and you just get the feeling actually that he could well be a leader of the future. He could be something quite special actually. So it's well worth having a look at that. The other thing, I've got to give a plug for anyone that's ever caught the Sheffield Live TV show that Alan Biggs presents. He had to scrape the barrel, I'm afraid, tonight, and I was his Sheffield Wednesday guest. So it is on his YouTube page, I believe now, but I will post some links to that. So if you want to have a look and a bit of a laugh, a bit of a giggle at me and my receding hairline, then feel free and have a gander at that. Vic, any bits from you?
I've just got one little bit. My tweet of the week actually came from a Blade, but it really, really made me chuckle. So at TomAir78 tweeted, Kieran Westwood is out for 8 weeks after throwing his shirt to the fans. He's not in, he's just going to wait another 8 weeks for a new top. And that absolutely, it was just before the shirts were announced. It just really, really put, it was a really crappy day after losing to Derby. And I thought, you know what, if you can't laugh at yourself, you'll just cry. So I found that one quite amusing.
Brilliant. That is pretty good. If people want to get hold of you on the social media, how do we do it?
You can find me at Victoria1867 on Twitter.
Very good. I am on Twitter at James Marriott. The podcast on Twitter at TWWcast. If you want to get hold of us by any possible way that you can think of, the best way to do it is just go to our website, thewednesdayweek.co.uk, and you'll find links to all our different pages and links to send us abusive emails as well. Vic is a particular fan of getting abusive emails, so please go on there and...
Well, I am, but you've still not set it up on my phone.
No, you've got to remind me because I forget.
Promising. Yeah.
We'll do it on Saturday, I promise. If you're going to send Vic an abusive email, wait until after about 11:30 on Saturday. We will have it set up by then. Hopefully
and like Mr. Chancery, I guaranteed to reply to every single one.
I am literally going to go around the pub getting people to email you there and then on Saturday. Now you realise that. Thank you for your company. Hopefully we'll have a few more of the guys back with us next week. Thank you to Evan for joining us tonight. This afternoon in his world. It was a real pleasure to chat to him, and we will speak to you next week.
It's absolutely world-class from Marcus Tudor!
chance here. A great save.